46, became a brain surgeon, while I was married to my wife, 40 for 20 years. I worked my way up from an intern as I went through school before I became a brain surgeon. My wife decided she didn't need to work. I didn't mind her being my spoiled trophy wife as long as she continued to respect me and give me what I need whenever I'm home from work. Living in Hawaii is glorious, don't get me wrong, but after living there my whole life, I started to become accustomed to the beauty. I stopped going to the beach as often as we used to, and before I knew it, we stopped doing fun things. Basically altogether. Each time I got home from work, I was exhausted and didn't feel like doing much that same night. On the weekends I was usually on call, so I wanted to keep prepared and close to the hospital. I wish my wife. We've told me she was bored. I would have done something with her, and I did. When she unexpectedly told me she found a party for us to go to, there was hula dancing and drinking. We did a little of both, and while we sat at the bar, I was sure we would have a deep conversation about where we were at in life and what each other needed. Before I could start, I noticed she was on her phone. She would occasionally look around, but not to me. She was looking for someone. I asked her who she was looking for, but before she could lie, a man sat at the bar beside me. He introduced himself and started chit-chatting with me. His business was graphic design, and the hospital's contract with the boring graphic designer was just about to expire. I had mentioned it to my wife over a month ago, and I thought it was a strange coincidence that the party she wanted us to attend had a graphic designer that introduced himself to us. I shrugged it off. My wife watched us talk and get along well. She chimed in the conversation too, but the evening summed up to a pleasant time, and I told this man that I considered signing him for a contract with the hospital. I arranged for him to come to our house for dinner, to talk business and review his work portfolio. When we went home after the party that night, my wife was so giggly and excited, she said she loved watching me do business and wished she could watch me do brain surgery. I said she wouldn't be able to handle it with her queasy stomach. At dinner, we ate, talked, and laughed. All three of us. My wife made a gourmet dinner, and we ate in the backyard by the fire pit and palm trees while we had drinks after work. I became extremely drowsy, more than usual. I knew I needed to get to bed, so I suddenly asked him to leave. He agreed graciously, and after he stepped out, I closed and locked the front door. Seconds before blacking out, I woke up in bed with the alarm going off. My wife said I was completely out of it last night as I crawled up the stairs. I guessed I drank too much, but that wasn't it. My wife knew why I was so drowsy, though. She just didn't tell me. She also didn't tell me what she did that very same night while I was unconscious. Nights like this happened twice more. So on the third time, I decided not to drink the wine my wife always gave me. I was pretty concerned that I couldn't figure out why I kept getting so drowsy when I drank. I noticed at dinner how close my wife was getting to this man without me included. They created conversation amongst themselves. Well, like they didn't need or notice at me. This gave me an idea. I decided to pretend I was still getting drowsy like I needed to go to bed pretty fast. So I said goodnight and dismissed our guest, locking the door behind him. I kissed my wife, could make quickly, and went upstairs to lay down. My wife didn't know if I drank the wine this time, so after 20 minutes, she peeked in the bedroom to make sure I was sleeping. I laid in bed wide awake, with eyes shut, pretending to be asleep around midnight. I thought I waited long enough to see what she was up to. That specific wine made me pass out, suddenly, and my wife always wanted me to drink it. My heart was racing. I never snuck around my own house before. It felt like a bad dream. But when I tiptoed to the closed and marked Sperry bedroom door, I knew I was doing the right thing. I started recording because I could hear my wife, Molly. I wasn't there emotionally. I'm sure I would have been freaking out if I was, but I was so perplexed and mad. I was just glad to be recording. I bumped against the door, and in a few seconds it opened. AP was staring at me, amused and worried. He knew he was in trouble. My wife was in bed, topless and worried. She was crying. After a moment's delay, she jumped up and stood by my side. Her eyes were full of desperation. and apparently delusion, because she tried telling me she would never do this to me, and that she loved me with all her heart. AP grabbed his stuff and left, but on his way out, I tripped him as he got up. I told him he was no longer my business partner. My wife took this moment to say she wouldn't be able to face the world without me. This was like a window into a brain. She was realizing she wasn't going to have me by her side anymore, and she wouldn't live here. I told her she was crazy for letting herself betray me and refusing to think about the consequences until I walked in on her. She was bawling, and I said, I knew this wasn't the only time they did it either. I straightforwardly asked her if she was giving me a specific wine for a reason. Her jaw dropped, and she said no. But I searched the cabinets and found the one in question. I smashed it outside. I noticed AP was gone, but he forgot something while my wife was protesting. I called AP. I told him he forgot to take his sleazy, recently divorced woman with him. He said he was on his way. I turned to my wife and told her how disappointed I was that her life together was over. I said I never wanted to lose her, but she chose him, and went so far as to make absolutely certain I wouldn't wake up and catch them. Except she never expected me to turn down the wine. She had a hard time packing. She just kept crying in defeat and blaming herself for being so incredibly stupid. I didn't correct her or offer any support. This was her life now. It was hard for me too, but I knew I deserved much better. AP arrived to take my ex and all her stuff. She was miserable. It was clear she didn't want this anymore. But how could I know? She lived so well. It turned out that losing her nice home and App losing his business contract was harder to handle than they anticipated. Not only that, but living together just isn't the same, or as exciting as sneaking it behind my back. App kicked her out in less than 1 year. Of course, she tried to come back to me, and maybe another man would have taken her back. But I was done. I spent 20 years of my life with her, only to be betrayed and forced to start over. It's not fair, and I won't settle for it. OP, I'm so sorry. Your wife of 20 years betrayed you. It sounds like she was talking to AP even before the party. All 3 of you attended. She must have been crazy to plan all this out and be so determined to give you one particular trick. If there was anything that needed to change in the relationship, she should have communicated that with you. There's no excuse for allowing another man into her life, especially not for going behind your back as you slept or worked. You were working to save lives, while she went to great lengths to cheat on you, after being together for so long. She shouldn't have been smart enough to remain trustworthy. She deserved the misery she found to balance out all the undeserved care and love. I'm proud of you for discovering the truth and refusing to forgive her. Thank you for sharing this story. I wish you all the best going forward. Now let's get into our second story for today. While on a vacation to the Bahamas, my wife of 4 years fell head over heels for someone else. It was the last thing I expected to happen. We were both so stressed about our daily lives that I assumed a vacation together would be exactly what we needed to grow closer together. Instead, it was exactly what she needed to forget about me. Dolphins are her favorite animal, and she always wanted to swim with them. That's what I arranged for her. We swim with the dolphins, and while doing so, she fell for the dolphin trainer. He stayed pretty close to her out of 10 people. And I saw him touch her sides a few times, all on the pretext of finding AP was living in a paradise, spending every day with her favorite animal. So when she looked at me, she saw a reminder of the boring life waiting for her back at home. Afterwards, I talked to her about it. I knew communication was the most important thing in relationships, even if it was going to be slightly awkward or upsetting. She told me she was jealous of him and wished she could be here every day around dolphins. I said, life is the way it is. People don't get to choose the lives they have access to. Where she wanted to start pursuing this career, it wasn't too late. I woke up in the hotel room at 2 a.m. to find that she was gone. I was terrified. I checked outside in. Our rental car was gone. She didn't leave me a note, so I figured she was trying to be sneaky and planned to be back before I woke up. I checked our family locator app and got an Uber to the address. It showed It was a very tall apartment building with a screen to look up the person you were trying to reach. I still had his name from the dolphin class, so I found his apartment number and buzzed. He answered it in a few moments were faster than anyone sleeping would have. I asked for my wife back and heard her voice in the background of the intercom. After a few moments, he said she was coming down. As soon as she got to me, she asked how I found her. I told her it wasn't important. But what was? Is her finding a way back home without me? She gasped, and I said I wasn't willing to pay for her way back to the US, now that she was cheating on me. And I didn't want her to be my wife either. She actually tried saying I wasn't being fair, that I should still care about her, at least as a friend, even though she cheated on me. She asked how I could blame her if he's her dream guy. I told her I was a fool to believe she was my tree. I very angrily grabbed the rental keys out of her hand and got in. She nearly got her hand shut in the door from trying to stop me. I left her in the dust. Surprisingly, on the last day of vacation, I slept like a baby. I woke up to my ex calling me because she couldn't get in the hotel with the extra locks done. She said this mistake was just one moment of weakness. She swore she regretted getting his number and wished she just would have enjoyed the time she had with the dolphins while looking to me as the man that made it happen. I said, "Yup," and hung up on her. I packed my stuff only and walked out to the car. She was harassing me while I packed up by. Didn't let it faze me, and I didn't let her stop me from leaving. 2 months later, I'm back in the US and already filed for divorce. My ex didn't have any close family, so I wasn't sure if she'd ever come back to the US. I was just wondering this when she called me. She was very sad, like all her life had been drained from her. It was so sweet and satisfying to turn her down. I reminded her that she gave me up even though I was the one that took her there, so that we could grow closer and she could ride the dolphins. She didn't think of me at all. She was a selfish cheater that didn't deserve to have me or my help. She fell for another man while I was right there by her side. She even had the nerve to call Hank her dream guy. So, yeah, I was just doing American men a favor by keeping hallway open. I am so sorry. You trying to do something nice for your wife by taking her on vacation? Maybe for her to compare you to another man and actually choose him over you. You didn't deserve this. And I hope you know it wasn't your fault. I'm proud of you for everything you did. You found her, stood firm, took the keys, and got back to the US without her after 4 years of marriage. She didn't deserve to have your care or love for another second. She should have been able to use some restraint and give you a little more respect, just because she met a dolphin trainer. Doesn't mean you're suddenly less worthy of perfection. She's a terrible person, and I am glad karma served justice to her. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoy listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.